morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Well, I am hoping that all of you had an excellent night's sleep. I did not. I had kind of a rough night's sleep last night. Hold on one second. I'm just turning off my ringer here. So, if, let's see here. Annette, good to see you. I got to blow this up. We've got Annette. We've got Full of Hope. Good to see you. Chris, glad that you're here. Random Toaster. So we're going to, it's funny. I was, so last night, actually yesterday, it wasn't last night, but late in the afternoon yesterday, I got on the computer to make sure that the host of the show that I'm going to be going on today and I were able to sync up our computers. It's like I do here when we do an interview. You always want to get the person there first and make sure that there's no problems and that their microphone works and all of that jazz. And so I was sitting in here and I had my iPad playing something on YouTube. It was next to me, and I think I was playing a video of the gentleman I'm going to be going on his show today. I was listening to something that he did, but there was a commercial that popped up, and it was Smokey the Bear. Right? I don't know how Smokey the Bear got on YouTube. It's kind of a rare commercial, I would say, for YouTube, but Smokey popped up and gave us the Smokey the Bear tagline, which, of course, if you know Smokey is "Only you can prevent forest fires." And so when I was putting this video together for this morning, I thought to myself, I could hear that in the back of my head over and over again, right? Only you can prevent relapse. If you're new to rehabilitation, if this is a process that's something you have not done before, or you've done it but you've never been successful, relapse typically refers to a setback or a return to a previous unhealthy behavior or condition. It's often associated with addiction or mental health issues. While the specific stages may vary from person to person, I want to go over a set of sort of the stages of relapse, because when we hear the term, very often we think, oh, the guy got loaded or the girl got loaded, so and so relapsed. Well, there's a difference between relapse and being in relapse. The final stage of the process usually ends up with the person with a bottle in their hand or a needle in their arm or whatever, but there is a process that happens along the way. And our job as people in recovery is to try to identify the signposts along the way so that we know when we are in relapse. I've said this many times on the boat before, but there's no neutral in recovery. You're never coasting. You're either engaged and moving forward or you're going in the opposite direction. If you're not working a program, then more than likely you're in danger. There's just no coasting. So the first stage of relapse, I think you could argue which one of these comes first or second. It doesn't much matter to me. This is sort of the gold standard, but from people in the rehabilitation community. But emotional relapse would be the first stage. In this stage, a person may not be actively thinking about using substances or engaging in negative behaviors, but they may experience emotions and behaviors that make them vulnerable to relapse. This can include isolating yourself, neglecting how you look, sort of hygiene and such, or bottling up emotions. So I think this is a kind of a key distinction between the first and the second step. Very often when we're screwing up, and we're in emotional relapse, we have absolutely no clue that we're in emotional relapse. This is why it is so important to do things like journaling. They're the canary in the coal mine, right? If you're writing down what's going on in your head, where your emotions are every single day, and you're doing it before you go to bed, you're doing it as soon as you get up in the morning, you will catch yourself in relapse. You will notice things in your writing. You will notice things in your personality that are different than normal. And when you're not, when you're out of whack and you're not, the normal you, chances are you are in relapse. I've told the story 100 times, if I've told it once on the lifeboat, of my relapse. Not this, this time I got out of prison. There's not been a relapse. This is the final relapse. Took place in prison. But the previous time when I got out and I was married to an attorney, and I talked about how I relapsed and how for a couple of weeks I was finding ways to drive over to the ugly part of town where the dope is everywhere and where all of my connections were. I had no reason to be in that part of town. And when you hear me tell the story, I drove over to a place to look at shirts. I told the wife at the time, sometimes you can get some great deals over there. We didn't need great deals. You know what I mean? We had cash. And the amazing thing is, if you hear me tell the story now, it sounds like, oh, well, he just wanted to get over there. Well, obviously that's the case. But in my head, that wasn't what was going on. In my head, I was literally just going over there to check out some shirts. Now, I wasn't journaling. I wasn't doing any of the things that are necessary if you really want to remain sober. So I didn't pick up on anything that was happening until they clicked handcuffs behind my back. I mean, I knew that the ship had hit the sand, so to speak. Once I started, doing dope again, it was just a matter of time before I ended up back in jail. That's just the way it works, always with me. The only thing that's ever going to stop me from doing dope is handcuffs. But that emotional relapse, if you can identify that you're making stupid decisions, if you can identify that you're doing things that defy logic for somebody that is trying to remain sober, I think back to that period of time. And if I was journaling, I would have come home and I would have done my stuff and I would have written, you know what, I was over in the hood and didn't even think about doing dope. And alarm bells would have been going off in my head. What the hell were you doing in the hood? Why were you over there in the first place? Shirts? The hell? You're going to buy secondhand shirts, over in the ghetto. Well, that just makes a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it? But that was, I was deep into emotional relapse. And all stages of relapse are usually brought on by things that trigger us. The term trigger does not mean when, let's say, one of your triggers is seeing anything drug related. So the scene in Pulp Fiction where John Travolta injects heroin into his arm, for a lot of people who used needles, that is a really, really tough scene to watch. I personally cannot watch it. But a trigger means that it is going to trigger emotions in my body, right, that make me uncomfortable. A trigger doesn't mean that, oh, I see that, now I got to go do dope. There's nothing I can do to stop it. Triggers are things that get us moving in the wrong direction. Triggers are things that get us thinking about stuff that we normally don't think about. I don't spend a great deal of time thinking about using dope, but if I watch that scene in Pulp Fiction, it's difficult for me to not romanticize parts of drug usage. And I'll be really honest, once I sort of figured out who I was in sobriety, and once I figured out what are my triggers, you couldn't pay me to watch that scene. I could watch it. It's not going to force me onto the needle. It's not going to, but it just doesn't make sense for me to watch something that makes me uncomfortable. I also don't watch anything on television these days anyway. But Annette says, I've been through an emotional relapse just recently. Today I get to watch me and see how I went through. It was rough. But you popped out the other side. Congratulations, Annette. That's, you know what? Somebody who's very, very close to me reached out last night. And he said, hey, I'm worried about you. And can I ask you something without making you angry? I said, of course. He said, how are you doing in your sobriety, man? Are you slipping? And number one, if you're solid in your sobriety, a question like that should make you happy, not the other way around. Because it means that somebody out there cares enough to actually be asking about you and how you are doing, and there's somebody that cares enough to be there for you. But I've been going through some stuff that, if you know my personal backstory, there's reason to think to yourself, boy, maybe he won't get through this one without using. Like there's some logic behind that, because I've been I'm on a bit of a rough run right now. There's there's just stressors in life, and if you tick off, if you look, you can actually take a stress test, and it will list all of the normal activities in a human being's life that up your stress levels to the unbelievable. And the first question on that stress test is, how many times have you moved in the last 3 years, as in changed addresses? So I've got this move coming up, this is a big one. This is it's monumental in its scope, and you got to pack everything up, and it's just it stresses you out. It also is a lot of exercise, so to speak. But the point that I'm making is, anything can start you off into emotional relapse. And I tend to put one foot into emotional relapse and then take that foot back out. And I probably do that a couple of times a week. To think that you're going to get through the rest of your time in sobriety without ever touching any of these is just absolute ignorance. When my emotions start getting me to do things like not talking to my friends, right? When I start isolating, or if I go 2 or 3 days without shaving, these kind of things, or I don't come here and share with you guys. I got something that really, really bums me out, and I just take it and I bottle it up inside, right? If I'm doing any of those behaviors, then I am obviously in emotional relapse. Now, the reason we journal, the reason that you keep in contact with your friends, the reason that you do all of the things that we talk about in the bag of tricks on the lifeboat every single day in, day out, is not to prevent these things from happening. It's to identify these things when they are happening. Then you can take action to stop it. Now, what happens if you don't take action? If you don't take action, you're going to get to the second phase of relapse, which is mental relapse. Now, during this stage, conflicting thoughts start running through your head. Part of the person may still be committed to recovery, but another part may romanticize past substance use or engage in rationalization and bargaining. Cravings may intensify, and the individual may begin to seek out opportunities for relapse. You may do that subconsciously. Seeking out opportunities for relapse. Sound familiar? Like, I'm going to get my butt over to the hood to look for shirts. I was already past that first stage, right? Now I'm into the mental relapse. And I was doing things like, I've told the story so many times, I know you guys know it, but the first time I went over, I didn't even go see my friend. I just went over and looked at shirts. Well, the second time I went over, I said to myself, why you got to be a jerk? You and this dude have got a lot of history. I mean, you can go say hi to him, just because you're sober, you got to be a jerk, and so I went over there, and then I was patting myself on the back, right? Because I went over there and I stared my addiction in the eye, and I beat it, right? I didn't. But at that point, I was already starting to the rationalization and the bargaining, right? I mean, what's the big deal? I quit, right? I'm sober. So I could just get sober again. I mean, it would only be one day. What's the big deal? When you start having those kind of thoughts, when you start thinking, yeah, I was addicted, but it really wasn't, that bad. If any of those thoughts are going through your head, you're in a bad place. You're in a bad place. In fact, you're in a really bad place. That's the point at which you jerk the e-brake as hard as you can. You start calling all of the people in your five and you tell them the truth. You know what? I'm thinking really, really messed up thoughts. I've got stuff going through my head that should never go through my head. I'm thinking about dope and the fact that I had fun when I was doing it. Like, I have no clue what's going on in my head. You got to throw that out and you got to talk to people. You got to be honest. Because if you start romanticizing about your past drug use, or if you start minimizing the effects, yeah, I hurt some people, but in all honesty, it's not like I killed anybody. And they were kind of doing it too. They were in the drug world. So I don't know. Yeah, you start going down that road, people, then there's only one more phase, right? There's only one more phase. So if you don't do something in phase one, you will slide into phase two. It's etched in stone. There's no way to get around it. But if you don't do something at the second stage, then you're going to hit physical relapse. This is stage 3. This stage refers to the actual act of engaging in the unhealthy behavior or substance use. It can be a brief slip or a complete return to the previous pattern of behavior. Once the physical relapse occurs, the person may feel guilt and shame or disappointment in themselves. This is another point that if you have a really bulletproof support group, if your 5 are people that you communicate with on a regular basis and you have a good relationship with these people, you can make that phone call instantly. You know what, man? I got high last night. I don't know what the hell was going through my mind. I didn't call you. I know I should have called you, but I got high last night. If you make that call and you start talking to the individuals in your support group about why the hell you used, this has the potential to be a good relapse. On the boat, we make a distinction between good and bad relapses. And there is a very big difference. Hunt says, if I ever drink again, it will hurt some precious people. I can't do that. I'll tell you something else, Hunt. It would also hurt some not precious people. It would thoroughly bum me out. I promise you. I really, I'm so happy with where you're at in life. It's funny. I was talking to somebody. I don't remember, it was yesterday or the day before. An old timer from the lifeboat who took off first season, and every once in a while checks in with the captain and asks about the crew. This individual is still sober, and you were one of the first names that came up, Hunt. This individual said to me, "Man, how's he doing?" And when I told them of what's going on, he was over the moon with happiness. No joke. Really, really fired up. And I don't know. I think that's beautiful. One of the things that I think is important to hit on, I think it's important to note that relapse is not inevitable. And recognizing the early warning signs and seeking support can greatly reduce the risk. If you or someone you know is experiencing difficulties, it's advisable to reach out to somebody. In a perfect world, maybe go see somebody that's a healthcare provider, so they can get you on medical assisted, or at least have a plan before you start. Who am I going to call if I find myself in the first stage of relapse? If I am in emotional relapse, who are the people I am going to call? Sorry. And then if you find yourself in the second phase, who are you going to call? Like I talk all the time about how people will prepare for a fishing trip more than they will prepare for their own sobriety. This is one of those times where I have 17 beautiful years of constant sobriety. Congratulations. That's awesome. 17 years. Everybody hear that? I could toss a one up for that. Thank God. That is super, super impressive. Yeah, that's awesome. That really is. That is awesome. So as we start, whether you're just starting to embark on this journey of recovery, or if you've been in recovery for a long period of time, you need a plan. You need a plan of how you're going to deal with things when things don't go well. You're going to need a plan for who it is that you're going to lean on. Who are you going to make the phone call to? All of that needs to be in place if you have any hope whatsoever of remaining sober. And if you think, you know what, I'm 10 years in at this point. Yeah, well, sometimes people get through by the grace of God. More often than not, there are people that have already built a network themselves. They've already got some kind of a structure so that they know who they're going to call. They know what they're going to do. But if you're going to do it like this, I don't know. And I catch so much flack every time I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If that were me, if my sobriety was white knuckle, I'd rather get high. For real. I mean, I know people who white knuckle their sobriety and they're miserable every waking hour that they have. At least the addict gets, 15 to 20 minutes of feeling good before they have to start worrying about the next one. So the term dry drunk, or, there's a million different ways to put it. White knuckle sobriety, dry drunk, the difference between chemical free and sober. Doesn't really matter how you put it. What it comes down to is, I'm sorry, peeps. Rough one. Really, really rough one. I apologize. It's gonna be a hell of a day. Today, people, the good Lord willing, I am going to be going on someone else's YouTube channel. And as is almost always the case, I am going on there as the resident drug expert, so to speak. Usually if someone is having me on their channel, they want to talk about one of two things. They want me to weigh in on drugs, or they want me to weigh in on life behind bars. Those are the two things that people tend to call on Captain Tommy for. In this particular interview, I'm going to be talking about both. I don't want to announce a time or anything like that. I can tell you that the name of the channel is Growing Up in Scientology. It's a gentleman that worked with Leah Remini on the Scientology and the Aftermath series. His name is Aaron Levin Smith. He's a very, very cool guy. Or maybe it's Smith Levin. I screw this up all the time. But he's Aaron, right? Aaron is, but the name of the channel is Growing Up in Scientology. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I really hope that, Full of Hope says, I hope you get some sleep first. If I don't, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm working on that. I promise. 25 years. Woo-hoo is right. That is awesome. That's a long time. people. I don't know that. There's no chance I'm ever going to hit that. It's slammed, says Rick Smith. I'm not exactly sure if I know what is slammed. Yeah, I don't know that reference. I'm sorry. Sorry. So I am going to announce he's a guy that he does live feeds as well, and he kind of does them spur of the moment. So I'm not going to have a ton of time, but I will get over to the Facebook group page and I will post. We're going live on Aaron's channel and growing up in Scientology, and exactly what time that will be. We're going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing this lowlife that used gamma hydroxybutyrate to take advantage of women. Rick Smith says, "I don't know either, Captain." Well, we all have those days, and we're slammed, I guess. I'm just going to address one comment before I go. And I know that you're speaking from emotion, and we all do this. We all speak from emotion. But in the comment, it says, I'm about to give up. 10 years, been struggling and trying to accomplish something. And I know from having been there and done that if you spend a decade of your life trying to do one thing and it doesn't happen, the level of frustration that can cause is just absolutely mind-bending. It really is. And I can completely understand that. But I don't know how many people we got here today. Let's see. We got about 17 this morning. 17 people from all over the world. And by the time this is done, it'll be about 150. It could go as high as 250 or 350. There was a time where we used to pull down about 700 views on videos because we would only do a limited number of them. When you do a ton of them, you get a lot less. But the point I'm making is there are a lot of people that actually show up to hear me speak about how to live a better life and how to get sober. And I'm a guy that spent 3 decades trying to get sober. I could have at any point just said, you know what? I got 20 years into this. It obviously just isn't going to work. I understand where you're coming from on that too, Scoob. Scoob says that everyone's discriminating against her because of her disabilities and because of rumors around my town. I did a show just recently about my past and not being able to escape my past. The opportunities that pass up Captain Tommy because of my past make me want to quit. They really do. They make me want to quit what I'm doing right now because I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and I feel like I'm not moving the boat forward. And if it wasn't me sitting in this chair, then the lifeboat would be on a different level completely. But when I did that show, so many people reached out to me and said, things along the lines of, what are you talking about? You are the lifeboat. And I'm not. But it's really nice to hear that. The point, Scoob, is that the world is going to throw punches at you until it doesn't. Life sucks until it doesn't. And we never know when that's going to be, you know? And I could sit here right now and tell you 100 stories of people that didn't give up after 10 years or after 57 banks said, no, we're not going to lend you any money. This is a stupid idea. You know, why would people want to eat the same hamburger in every city? When you go to a different city, you want different food. The idea that people would want to know exactly what they're going to get at a restaurant and just eat the same hamburgers everywhere is the stupidest thing we've ever heard. Ray Kroc filed for bankruptcy more than a dozen times. By all accounts, he was a failure. Right? His family wouldn't let him come to Thanksgiving for because he wouldn't go get a job. The world craps on you until it doesn't. The difference between the people who achieve what they want and the people who don't is that they stick around until the miracle happens. They continue to plug until the miracle happens. Scooby, sharing is the kind of thing that has return. Hang in there. You know, the truth is there's a lot of people who care very, very deeply for you. I'm one of them. And there isn't much that I wouldn't do for you, Scoob. That's a good thing. For decades, when I was trying to quit doing heroin, I couldn't come up with one name of somebody that would try to help or would have my back. I mean, I had family members, but they couldn't understand the concept of what I was going through. You know what? That one's for you, Scoop. And you have my word that I am going to be I am going to be praying pretty heavily for you. I'm sorry, I'm just checking something out. Hey, James Novak, it's good to see you. Glad that you're here. So back to the stages of relapse. If it always seems like it comes back to the exact same thing, that would be because it always comes back to the exact same thing. You need to communicate with yourself. You need to be journaling. You need to be doing the things necessary to identify where you are in your recovery. Are you in active recovery or are you in active relapse? Are you moving forward or are you moving backwards because you're not coasting? You're not sitting still. You're not in neutral. Neutral doesn't exist in rehabilitation. You're either moving forward or you're moving back. People, I'm going to post later today over on the Facebook group page exactly when I will be going on growing up in Scientology. If by some chance you guys miss it, it's going to be up there forever, so you'll have an opportunity to see it at a later date. I would love to have some people from the boat there. It is live, and it would be nice to have some people to say nice things about the boat, because when he says who I am and where I'm from, it would be nice if I'm hoping to recruit some people who need help. It's the reason that I'm going to do this show. This is probably not the most opportune time that I've ever done for an interview. And that's, but that is what it is. John Doe, good to see you. Appreciate everybody getting up and spending time with me this early in the morning. I know that for those of us on the left coast here, it's just a little after 5 a.m. It takes some dedication for the crew on the West Coast to get up and come and hang out with everybody. Will says he's had thoughts of taking himself out in the past, but recovered from it and feels better. Things are always darkest right before the storm. I think things are always darkest right before the dawn, right before the sun comes up, and you have a brand new day and a brand new everything. Captain, there is only one disease. Get some sea moss and bladder wrack. Okay. There is only one disease. Well, apparently I have it. Well, Scoob, I look forward to meeting you dead. I don't think we're going to be able to do it down here, but I am of the firm belief that I'll get to meet him at some point. Miss V says she's not sure what bladder wrack is. That would make two of us. It sounds like something that they might put into a potion made at Hogwarts, right? Like you're going into town and you could hear Hermione saying, "We're going to need some bladder wrack." I don't know. That can I relapse back to denial? Absolutely, and people do all of the time. All of the time, people do that. People get to the point where, I mean, what'll happen is somebody who's in recovery will talk themselves out of the fact that they were really an addict. They will say, I got panicky about my life, and then I got in with all of these guys, and they started doing the 12-step thing, or I got on the lifeboat, and they had me convinced. They had me convinced it was a disease and that I had it. But now that I'm using again, I've come to realize that I really don't have a problem. I like getting high, but it's not like, I'm addicted to this stuff or anything else. You see that every day in recovery. People who go right back into denial. Happens all the time. You absolutely can do that. It's frightening to watch. It really is. It's I've said so many times on the lifeboat that when you lie to people, it's pretty rotten. But when you start lying to yourself and believing that BS, that really is the worst thing. That is the absolute worst thing that you can do. Beer is food, depending on who makes it. There's some stuff in there. There are certainly ingredients in there that are closer to but nevertheless, the ingredient in there that you got to worry about isn't all the food ones, right? It's that the alcohol that's really bad. I have the Harry Potter series and Twilight. Those will go with me no matter where I go. I have read both of those series as well. Yeah, I saw a T-shirt once that said, It said Guinness on it, and it said there's a loaf of bread in every bottle, and on the back it said, "And I'm hungry." Alrighty, people. Thanks again for getting up. I will. I'll be seeing you guys on the deck of the lifeboat. Go out there and make it a great day, huh? Yeah, I'll see you guys on the lifeboat. Okay. I'm Tommy Scoble. The cat's in the garage. God bless.